Some of you did not click this video by accident. You clicked it because something in your life has been quietly changing and you have not been able to explain it to anyone. The people around you still see the same woman, the same smile, the same routine, but inside you feel different, quieter, more aware, less willing to chase what once mattered so much to you. And maybe that has scared you. You may have wondered why certain people feel farther away, why your heart no longer fits into spaces it used to live in so easily, why the noise of the world feels heavier than it used to. Let me tell you something gently, my dear sister. This is not you losing your place in the world. This is Allah changing your position in it. There is a moment in a woman's life when Allah stops shaping her for acceptance and begins shaping her for elevation. And when that moment arrives, everything starts to feel different. The way you love, the way you speak, the way you walk away, the way you stand alone. If you feel that shift in your chest right now, this message is for you. Stay with me, because what Allah is raising in you is not meant to be understood by everyone. It is meant to be carried by you. Allah quieted your world because your old self could not go any higher. My dear sister, if you are listening to this when the house is still and the day has finally let go of you, I want you to notice how quiet your life has become, not just around you, but inside you. There was a time when your world felt full of voices, full of messages, full of expectations, full of movement. Your phone would light up, your name would be called, your presence would be needed. You were always responding, always adjusting yourself to fit what others wanted from you, always trying to be enough in every space you entered. And in that busyness, you may not have noticed how tired your heart became. Then, slowly, something changed. Conversations became fewer, invitations became lighter. The constant pull of being needed began to fade. The noise that once filled your days and nights softened into long stretches of quiet. You may have sat with that silence and wondered what it meant. You may have asked yourself if people had forgotten you, if you had done something wrong, if you were being left behind while everyone else moved forward. But my dear sister, what if this quiet is not a sign of loss? What if it is a sign of care? Allah does not raise a soul while it is still tied to every sound, every opinion, every hand that pulls it in different directions. A heart that is constantly being pulled outward cannot grow upward. So Allah, in His mercy, begins to create space. He creates stillness. He creates moments where you are no longer distracted by the outside world and are gently brought back to yourself. This is not emptiness. This is a sacred pause. In this quiet, you begin to hear things you could not hear before. You hear your own thoughts. You feel your own emotions. You start to recognize what truly matters to you, not what you were told should matter. You begin to notice what brings you peace and what only brought you approval. You start to see which parts of your life were built on love and which were built on fear of being alone. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. Silence has a way of bringing buried feelings to the surface. Memories you did not want to revisit, questions you avoided asking yourself, hopes you pushed aside because life was too busy to sit with them. But this is part of the healing. Allah is not trying to overwhelm you. He is inviting you to meet the version of yourself that has been waiting quietly inside, beneath all the noise. You begin to realize that so much of your energy was spent trying to be understood by others, accepted by others, valued by others. You may notice how often you shaped your words to keep peace, how often you stayed quiet to avoid conflict, how often you gave more than you had just to feel connected. In the stillness, you finally see how heavy that was. And then something gentle begins to happen. You start to feel lighter, not because your life suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. You stop measuring yourself by how quickly people respond to you. You stop defining your worth by how many invitations you receive. You stop feeling like you must always perform to be loved. This is where elevation truly begins. Not when the world claps for you, not when people praise you, not when your name is spoken in rooms you are not in, but when you can stand in silence without feeling empty, when you can sit alone without feeling small, when you can be with yourself and feel a quiet sense of peace instead of a restless need to be seen. This is a deep kind of strength, the kind that does not depend on attention, the kind that does not crumble when plans change or people leave, the kind that remains steady because it is rooted in something greater than the moment. In this season of quiet, Allah teaches you to listen for a different voice, not the voice of the crowd, not the voice of expectation, but the gentle guidance that settles in your heart. The kind that does not shout, but guides softly. The kind that does not rush you, but walks with you. You may find yourself turning to prayer more deeply, not because you need something urgently, but because you find comfort there. You may open the Quran not looking for answers to a problem, but looking for closeness. You may sit in moments of reflection and feel a calm you did not know you were missing. This is not a coincidence. This is connection. Allah often draws you closer when the world steps back. Not because people are bad, but because your heart needs to remember where its true home is. When everything else becomes quiet, the relationship between you and your Creator becomes louder in the most peaceful way. And in this space, you begin to grow in ways no one can see yet. You grow in patience, you grow in self-respect, you grow in trust, you grow in awareness of your own boundaries and your own needs. You start to recognize that you do not have to explain yourself to everyone, that you do not have to be everything for everyone, that you are allowed to choose where your energy goes. This is how Allah prepares you for a higher place. Because a higher place requires a stronger heart, a calmer mind, a deeper sense of purpose. If you were lifted while still tied to every voice and every opinion, the weight of that height would be too heavy to carry. So Allah builds you first, quietly, gently, patiently. You may not see the change in the mirror. You may not hear people talk about it, but inside something is becoming steady, something is becoming clear, something is becoming whole. Your old self could only grow so far in noise. That version of you needed constant movement, constant validation, constant connection to feel alive. But this new version of you is learning how to feel alive in stillness, in reflection, in faith, in trust. This new version of you does not panic when things slow down. She does not fall apart when plans change. She does not feel lost when people step away. She knows that even in quiet, she is not alone, because Allah is there. And my dear sister, this is the beginning of a different kind of life. A life that is not driven by what others want from you, but guided by what Allah is building within you. So, if your world feels quieter now, do not be afraid of it. Sit in it, breathe in it, let it teach you, because this quiet is not the end of something. It is the beginning of who you are becoming. The hunger for approval faded the moment Allah decided to honor you. My dear sister, there was a time when being seen mattered deeply to you. You may not have said it out loud, but inside, you felt it. You wanted to be chosen. You wanted to be noticed. You wanted to feel like you mattered in the eyes of the people around you. So you tried to be pleasant, helpful, understanding, patient, strong, and gentle all at once. You carried more than your share. You stayed quiet when something hurt. You smiled even when your heart felt tired. And for a while, that attention felt good. It felt like proof that you were doing something right, that you were valuable, that you were needed. But slowly, something inside you began to feel empty, because no matter how much approval you received, it never seemed to last. One kind word could lift you, but one careless comment could pull you down. One invitation could make your day, but one moment of being overlooked could make you question yourself. That is a heavy way to live, my dear sister. A heart that rises and falls with the reactions of people never truly rests. So Allah, in His mercy, begins to change something inside you. He allows moments where you are not chosen, where you are not noticed, where your efforts are not praised, where your presence is not acknowledged the way it used to be, and at first, this can hurt. You may wonder if you have lost something, if you have changed, if you are no longer enough. But what is actually happening is far more gentle and far more powerful. Allah is teaching your heart where honor truly comes from. You begin to realize that people can appreciate you one day and forget you the next. They can praise you in one moment and misunderstand you in another. Their view of you can change based on their own moods, needs, and circumstances. And when your worth is placed in their hands, your heart will always feel unsteady. So Allah slowly lifts that weight from you. You start to feel less affected by who claps and who stays silent. You notice that you no longer rush to explain yourself. You no longer feel the same urgency to prove your goodness, your effort, or your intentions. There is a quiet shift inside you, like something settling into place. This is not you becoming distant. This is you becoming grounded. You begin to understand that being honored by Allah is not the same as being admired by people. One is deep and lasting. The other is light and changing. When Allah honors a servant, He gives her something that cannot be taken away by a harsh word or a missed invitation. He gives her inner peace. He gives her self-respect. He gives her a sense of dignity that does not need to be announced. You may notice that you start to carry yourself differently. You speak more calmly. You listen more carefully. You choose your words instead of letting them spill out in a rush to be understood. You no longer feel the need to be everywhere or involved in everything, not because you do not care, but because you care in a wiser way. You begin to save your energy for what truly matters. Your faith, your character, your peace, your relationship with Allah. This is where the hunger for approval fades, not because you stop being human, but because your heart finds a better source of reassurance. You start to feel comfort in the simple truth that Allah sees you even when no one else does, that Allah knows your intentions even when they are misunderstood, that Allah counts your quiet efforts even when they go unnoticed. And this awareness changes everything. You stop asking, do they value me? And start living with the calm confidence of, Allah values me. There is a softness that comes with this, not hardness, a gentleness, a patience. You become less reactive, less sensitive to every shift in how people treat you, more steady in who you are. And something beautiful happens. The world begins to respond to you differently, even though you never asked it to. People feel the calm in your presence. They sense that you are not trying to impress them, that you are not seeking something from them, that you are simply being. This kind of energy is rare. It makes others slow down. It makes them listen more carefully. It makes them treat you with a different kind of respect. But my dear sister, remember this. You did not change so the world would honor you. You changed because Allah decided to free your heart from needing the world to define you. And that is a far greater gift than any approval people could ever give. Allah removed the hands that held you down before He lifted you up. My dear sister, there is a kind of change that does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself. It does not come with clear reasons or explanations. It comes quietly, through distance, through fading connections, through people who slowly stop showing up the way they once did. At first, this can feel confusing. You may find yourself replaying moments in your mind, wondering what you said, what you did, what you could have done differently. You may question whether you were too much or not enough. You may hold on to memories, conversations, and feelings, trying to understand why something that once felt close now feels far. This is a very human response. The heart naturally wants to hold on. But my dear sister, there is a deeper reality that often sits beneath these moments. Not everything that leaves your life does so because you failed. Sometimes things leave because you have grown. Allah, in His mercy, does not lift a soul while it is still being weighed down by what drains it. He does not raise a heart while it is still tied to what weakens it. So before He lifts you, He begins to loosen the hands that are holding you in a lower place. Some of those hands belong to people, some belong to habits, some belong to old versions of yourself. You may not realize how heavy certain connections were until they are no longer there. How much of your energy went into explaining, fixing, pleasing, waiting, and hoping? How often you carried emotional weight that was never meant to be yours? When Allah begins to remove these things, it can feel like loss, even when what is leaving was not healthy, even when it was not helping you grow, because the heart becomes attached to what is familiar, even if it is painful. So Allah is gentle. He does not always take things away all at once. He allows distance to grow. He allows conversations to fade. He allows situations to change slowly, so your heart has time to adjust. In this space, something begins to happen inside you. You start to breathe differently. You feel moments of lightness you did not feel before. You notice that your thoughts are clearer, your emotions are calmer, your days feel less crowded, even if they feel quieter. And in that quiet, you begin to understand. Some things were not meant to go with you into the next version of your life. Not because they were evil, not because they were worthless, but because they belong to a season that has now passed. Allah knows the weight your soul can carry. He knows what will strengthen you and what will slowly wear you down. So He chooses for you, even when you would choose differently for yourself. This is one of the hardest forms of mercy to recognize, because we often ask Allah to give us more love, more connection, more opportunity, more closeness. But sometimes His answer is to take something away, not to leave you empty, but to make you lighter. You may notice that you begin to protect your time more, your energy more, your heart more. You stop reaching for what does not reach back. You stop explaining yourself to people who are not listening. You stop trying to hold together things that are quietly falling apart. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom being formed inside you. You begin to realize that peace is not found in holding on to everything. It is found in knowing what to let go of. And in this process, Allah begins to fill the space with something new, clarity. You start to see what truly aligns with your faith, your values, your purpose. You become more aware of what brings you closer to Allah and what pulls you away, even subtly. You may find that your prayers feel more sincere. Your reflection feels deeper. Your sense of direction feels stronger, even if you cannot yet explain where you are being led. This is the lifting. Not always through visible success, not always through sudden happiness, but through inner strength. A strength that does not depend on who stays and who leaves. A strength that knows deep inside that Allah is enough. My dear sister, sometimes Allah lifts you by first teaching you how to walk without leaning on what was never meant to support you. And when you begin to stand on your own, supported by faith rather than by fragile connections, you discover something powerful. You were never meant to be held up by the world. You were meant to be held by Allah. So if your life feels lighter in some ways and lonelier in others, do not rush to fill the space. Let it teach you. Let it shape you. Because what Allah is preparing you for requires a heart that is not weighed down by what it was never meant to carry. And when the lifting comes, you will realize that the letting go was not the painful part. It was the necessary part. Your heart stopped chasing because Allah was teaching it where to stand. My dear sister, there was a time when your heart was always reaching for answers, reaching for people, reaching for signs that you were on the right path. You wanted clarity, reassurance, direction, and sometimes you wanted it quickly. You would look outside yourself for something that could settle what felt unsettled inside. You waited for messages, for opportunities, for moments that felt like proof that your life was moving forward. And then, slowly, something changed. You began to feel less pulled by every door that opened, less excited by every promise that sounded good, less anxious about every path you did not take. It was not that you stopped caring, it was that you stopped chasing. At first, this can feel strange, almost uncomfortable, because when you are used to moving, reaching, and searching, stillness can feel like being stuck. You may wonder if you have become passive, if you have lost your ambition, if something inside you has gone quiet in a way that feels unfamiliar. But my dear sister, what has actually happened is something far deeper. Allah is teaching your heart where to stand. There is a difference between standing and chasing. Chasing is driven by fear, fear of missing out, fear of being left behind, fear that if you do not move fast enough, something important will pass you by. Standing, on the other hand, is driven by trust. Trust that what is meant for you will reach you even if you move slowly. Trust that what is not meant for you can pass by without taking something from you. This lesson does not come easily, because the world around you is always moving, always rushing, always comparing, always showing you what others are achieving, receiving, becoming. It can make you feel like you are falling behind if you are not constantly striving for the next thing. But Allah is building something different inside you. He is building steadiness. You begin to notice that your decisions feel more thoughtful. You do not jump into things just because they look good from the outside. You pause, you reflect. You ask yourself whether this aligns with your faith, your values, your peace. You start to feel a quiet sense of direction that does not come from pressure, but from clarity. This is where your heart begins to feel anchored. An anchored heart does not drift with every wave. It does not change direction every time the wind shifts. It knows where it belongs, even when the path ahead is not fully visible. You may still have dreams, you may still have goals, you may still have hopes for your future, but now they are held differently. They are not held with desperation. They are held with trust. You begin to understand that striving does not always mean running. Sometimes striving means waiting with faith. Sometimes striving means saying no to what is easy so you can say yes to what is right. Sometimes striving means being patient with the process Allah has chosen for you, even when you do not fully understand it. This is a powerful transformation, because a heart that knows where it stands cannot be easily shaken by what comes and goes. You may notice that you become less affected by comparison. You see someone else receiving something you hoped for, and instead of feeling small, you feel calm. You remind yourself that what Allah has written for you has its own time, its own place, its own form. You begin to feel less urgency to explain your choices to others. You no longer feel the need to justify why you are taking a slower path, a quieter path, a different path. This does not mean you stop listening to advice. It means you stop living by pressure. There is a dignity that comes with this kind of steadiness. People begin to feel it in your presence. They sense that you are not easily pulled, not easily swayed, not easily rushed. You move with intention, not impulse. This does not make you rigid. It makes you rooted. A rooted heart can bend without breaking. It can wait without withering. It can hold hope without becoming anxious. Allah teaches you that you do not have to chase what was written to find you. You do not have to run after what was always meant to arrive in its own time. This lesson also teaches you something gentle about letting go of control. You may realize how much of your chasing came from wanting to manage every outcome, to make sure things happened a certain way, to protect yourself from disappointment by trying to direct every step. But Allah invites you into a softer way of living, a way where you do your part, but you trust Him with the result. You show up, but you let Him open the door. You make effort, but you let Him decide the timing. This kind of trust does not make you passive, it makes you peaceful. You still walk forward, you still grow, you still learn. But you do not walk with tension in your chest, constantly wondering if you are doing enough or moving fast enough. You walk with a quiet confidence that says, if Allah has placed this in my path, He will also give me what I need to walk it. My dear sister, This is one of the most beautiful forms of elevation, because a woman who knows where she stands does not need to chase a place in the world. She creates space simply by being who she is. Her calm becomes her strength. Her patience becomes her presence. Her trust becomes her direction. And even when the path ahead is not fully clear, her heart remains steady because it is standing on something deeper than certainty. It is standing on faith. So if you find that you are no longer running the way you used to, do not assume you have lost something. You may have found something far more powerful. You have found your ground. And from that ground, Allah can raise you higher than chasing ever could. The weight grew heavy because Allah was teaching you how to carry greatness. My dear sister, there are prayers you whispered when no one else could hear you. Hopes you carried quietly in your heart. Dreams you placed in Allah's hands and believed would come sooner than they did. You imagined how life would look once certain doors opened, once certain answers arrived, once certain moments finally became real. And then, time stretched. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, maybe even longer. And with every passing moment, you felt the weight of waiting settle deeper into your chest. You may have asked yourself why it was taking so long. You may have wondered if you were being overlooked, if you had done something wrong, if your prayers had somehow been missed. But my dear sister, Allah does not delay without purpose. Waiting is not empty time. It is working time. It is building time. It is shaping time. There is a version of you that would not have been ready to carry what you asked for, not because you were unworthy, but because you were still becoming. When Allah prepares something great, He also prepares the heart that will receive it. You may not see that preparation on the outside. Your life may look the same to everyone else. Your routine may not have changed. Your circumstances may still feel familiar, but inside something is being strengthened. Waiting teaches you patience in a way nothing else can. Not the kind of patience that simply endures, but the kind that grows. You begin to notice how you respond when things do not go your way, how you speak when you feel disappointed, how you treat others when you feel unseen. These moments reveal your heart to you. At first, waiting can make you restless. You may compare your life to others. You may see people receiving what you hoped for and feel a quiet ache. You may scroll past stories of success, happiness, and milestones and wonder why your own path feels slower. But slowly, Allah teaches you a different way to look at time. You begin to understand that being early for something you are not ready to carry can be just as painful as being late. You start to realize that timing is not about speed, it is about alignment. Alignment between what you are asking for and who you are becoming. In this waiting, Allah often teaches you to trust in a deeper way. Not just to trust that something good will come, but to trust Him even if you do not know what is coming. This kind of trust does not cling to a specific outcome. It clings to the one who controls all outcomes. You may notice that your prayers change. Instead of asking only for what you want, you begin to ask for what is best for you. Instead of asking for things to happen now, you begin to ask for strength to handle whatever happens when it does. This is a powerful shift, because a heart that can trust without conditions is a heart that is becoming strong. Waiting also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you are not in control of every moment, every opportunity, every door, and in that reminder, there is peace. You do your part, but you allow Allah to do His. You may find that in this season, you grow closer to your faith in quieter ways. You turn to prayer not only when you feel desperate, but when you feel reflective. You open the Quran not only for answers, but for comfort. You sit in moments of stillness and feel a connection that does not depend on whether your life is moving fast or slow. This is part of carrying greatness. Greatness is not only about what you receive, it is about who you become while you wait to receive it. Because when something finally arrives, it will bring new responsibilities, new expectations, new challenges. And Allah wants you to meet those moments with a steady heart, not a fragile one. So He allows the weight to grow heavy, not to burden you, but to strengthen you. Like a weight that builds muscle, the weighting builds your inner strength. It teaches you endurance, it teaches you perspective, it teaches you gratitude for small things, not just big outcomes. You may start to notice that you find joy in moments you used to overlook. A quiet morning, a kind word, a peaceful prayer, a sense of calm at the end of a long day. These small gifts become reminders that your life is not on hold just because one thing has not arrived yet. You begin to live, not just wait. This is a beautiful place to be. Because a woman who can live fully, even in the middle of uncertainty, carries a kind of light that does not depend on circumstances. She becomes steady, she becomes grounded, she becomes patient in a way that feels natural, not forced. And when the moment finally comes, when Allah opens the door you have been standing in front of for so long, you will walk through it differently than you would have before. You will walk through it with gratitude instead of entitlement, with humility instead of pride, with calm instead of fear. You will understand that what you received was not just a result of your effort, but a gift shaped by Allah's timing. My dear sister, if the weight feels heavy right now, do not assume it means you are being denied. You may be being prepared to carry something that requires a stronger heart, a deeper trust, and a more grounded soul than you once had. So hold on gently, keep showing up, keep trusting, because sometimes the greatest part of what Allah gives you is not what arrives at the end of the wait. It is the woman you become while you are still standing in it. Allah led you into solitude so you could finally hear who you were becoming. My dear sister, there is a season when your world becomes quieter in a different way, not just fewer messages, fewer plans, fewer voices around you, but fewer distractions inside you. You find yourself spending more time alone with your thoughts, your prayers, your memories, and your questions. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You may sit in a room and notice the silence more than you ever did before. You may reach for your phone, for noise, for something to fill the space, because stillness can make you feel exposed. When everything is quiet, there is nowhere to hide from your own heart. And you may wonder, why am I here? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward while I am standing still? But my dear sister, solitude is not a sign of being left behind. It is often a sign of being set apart. Allah sometimes leads you away from the crowd, so you can hear a voice that gets lost in the noise of everyday life. Not the voice of comparison, not the voice of expectation, not the voice of pressure, but the gentle voice inside you that speaks when everything else is quiet. In solitude, you begin to notice what you truly feel, not just what you show. You begin to recognize what you actually want, not just what you were taught to want. You start to see the difference between what brings you peace and what only brings you distraction. This can be emotional. You may feel old wounds surface. You may remember moments you thought you had moved past. You may feel sadness, regret, or longing for things that are no longer part of your life. But this is not Allah reopening pain to hurt you. He is opening it to heal you. Because healing does not happen in rush. It happens in quiet. It happens in reflection. It happens when you finally give your heart the space to feel what it has been carrying for so long. In this solitude, you may notice your relationship with Allah changing. You no longer turn to Him only when something goes wrong. You begin to turn to Him simply because you want to be close. Your prayers become less about asking and more about speaking. Less about urgency and more about honesty. You may find yourself sitting after prayer, not in a hurry to move on, but just being present. You may open the Quran and read slowly, not trying to finish a page, but trying to understand a single line. You may feel comfort in knowing that even if no one else knows what you are carrying, Allah does. This is a beautiful shift, because a heart that feels seen by Allah does not feel invisible in the world. Solitude also teaches you something important about your own strength. You begin to realize that you can sit with yourself without falling apart, that you can face your thoughts without running from them, that you can feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This builds a quiet confidence inside you, not the kind that shows off, but the kind that knows. You start to understand your own boundaries more clearly. You recognize what drains you and what restores you. You become more aware of when to say yes and when to say no. You stop filling your time just to avoid being alone and start choosing how to spend it with intention. This is not isolation. This is awareness. Allah uses this time to show you who you are becoming beneath all the roles you play. Not just the version of you that shows up for others, but the version of you that exists when no one is watching. You may notice that your values feel stronger. Your faith feels more personal. Your sense of direction feels